Welcome to Act Out. I'm Eleanor Goldfield, and this is your tipping point. So if you're familiar with my show, or really any show that isn't corporatized, propagandized mass media, you'll know that the US government and its corporate sponsors are full of shit. Overflowing. The gilded cup runneth over. So even as I mentioned in the spoken word just now, when you hear things like US bombs Afghan hospital, you know it's only a matter of time before we find a way to excuse ourselves from any and all responsibility. In this case, it took 3 days. 3 days after the bombing of a Doctors Without Borders hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan, we declared it not our fault. According to General John Campbell, the head of U.S. forces in Afghanistan, it was actually Afghan forces who called for the attack, not U.S. advisors. So let's just say, for the sake of shits and giggles, that is true. Do you not fucking check? Even if the Afghani people wanted us to bomb a hospital that treats the wounded without care of whose side or political diatribes, would you not fucking check that goddamn intel? Or intel, that too. You wouldn't, because America. In fact, we have a long history of not checking anything but the military budget, so it's really kind of a miracle that we haven't had more incidents like the hospital in Kunduz. As Anand Gopal writes in his highly frustrating, immensely fascinating book, No Good Men Among the Living, he found through extensive talks with members of both the Taliban and the Northern Alliance that the Taliban was all but defeated by the end of 2001. But that's no epic war saga. No worthy adversary would fall so quickly, so we stayed. But then we needed a reason to stay, something to fight. And how do you fight a war without an adversary, Gopal asks? Well, quite simply, you make one up. And it was pretty clear from the outset that we were taking the don't ask, don't tell approach in rounding up the enemy. For example, planes dropped leaflets like fucking confetti at a carnival, urging people to turn in anyone at all, who might be a murderer or a terrorist in exchange for wealth and power beyond your dreams. I mean, what the fuck is this, Aladdin? Where's the magic lamp you rub for 3 wishes? I mean, shit, if you were to drop those leaflets in America, it would take all of 10 seconds before you had a line of overzealous asshats offering up a citizen's arrest of someone who just looks funny. As Gopal explains, they would create enemies where there were none, exploiting the perverse incentive mechanism that the Americans had put in place. And in a country where grudges span generations, tribes are splintered and alliances made depending on what occupying force is now visiting, warlords and criminals are all too eager to play the game. As one warlord explained to the author, this whole land is filled with thieves and liars. This is what you Americans have made. I know this game. I know how to survive. I went to the Americans and said, I can find bin Laden. Give me $5 million and I'll bring you his head. So I got $5 million. Then, a few days later, I went to Al-Qaeda and told them, give me $1 million or I'll turn you over to the Americans. So they gave me $1 million and I convinced the Americans to stop the bombing for a little while. And this story is not an unusual one. I could go on. This book is overflowing. Are you sensing a theme here? Overflowing with the painful stupidity and atrocious arrogance we exhibit, and want to keep exhibiting in Afghanistan. Yeah, General John Campbell made it clear that we'd like more time, more money, more guns, and more crime in order to continue this crackerjack job of losing money, killing people, and making terrorists, and then blaming it on someone else. In fact, our scapegoating is so brazen that within 15 minutes of the hearing, Senator Kelly Ayotte felt that she'd heard about enough about dead doctors, so she asked Campbell whether or not Iran is aiding the Taliban. Well, Campbell sort of bumbled over a response, citing some vague reports that maybe, possibly, yes, maybe, which I'm sure was more than enough for Senator Ayotte to use as, oh, wait, yes, it was. I mean, what level of fucking sociopathic, unhinged, deranged, inhumane, ignorant, arrogant, dumb fuckedness do you have to reach to shrug off the killing of 22 innocent people, including people whose sole purpose in life is to try to save lives, in favor of a last-ditch attempt to ensure that we kill more people for no fucking reason other than a hunch, based on probably the same fucking bullshit intel that found us proudly bombing the shit out of a hospital in the first place? Needless to say, if you go to a Senate Armed Services Committee hearing, bring a stress ball. As it stands now, Doctors Without Borders is demanding a third-party investigation and loudly proclaiming the incident a war crime because, duh. And the U.S. response? Condolence payments for the victims. Fuck you, DOD. If I didn't already have a low-life scum plan for this week, you'd so get it. Meanwhile, as William Rivers Pitt put it, the Pentagon is going to investigate the Pentagon to see if the Pentagon obliterated a hospital in Afghanistan by bombing it with precision munitions fired from a massive gunship for more than an hour, incinerating civilians, children, and doctors. Sounds legit. And I'm sure the findings of said investigation will mirror our clumsy but ultimately self-pardoning approach to Afghan affairs. A bit like this.
Our continued efforts to stabilize Afghanistan will benefit the entire region and in turn offer greater security for the U.S. homeland.
You know what they say about that first answer. Always go with your first answer, John. Always. To add your name to a growing list calling for the U.S. to rebuild the hospital and submit to a third-party investigation, visit the link below. You can also donate to and learn more about Doctors Without Borders by visiting doctorswithoutborders.org.